Hey guys, Mapletail here. Today is my reaction to the most recent release in the Warrior Cat series, Book 5 of the Starless clan arc, Wind. So spoiler warning for the entire book. And we're drawing some Warrior Cats art challenges I've seen floating around recently. Specifically the Grey Cats with Blue Eyes challenge by Marble Snout, and a variation on that challenge by Alpaca Acute with Solid Grey Cats with Green Eyes. Before talking about Wind, I just wanted to let anyone know who missed it that I'm hosting another Warrior Cats LGBT+ map. It's to the song Following the Sun by Super High and Nika, and it features an orange color palette to match with the yellow map we did to the song Dandelions, and the violet map for the song Purple. My hope is that one day we'll have a whole rainbow of Warriors LGBT+ maps. So if you're an animator, I hope you'll consider joining. Beginners are welcome, and I'll leave a link in the description for it. Anyways, let's get into Wind. As usual, this isn't a formal review, more just my thoughts chapter by chapter of anything that stands out. I've also already read and talked about the first few chapters featured in the preview, so today we're diving right into chapter 4, and it's a Frostpaw POV. She wakes up from a dream, confused about her surroundings, forgetting for a moment she was staying in ShadowClan after being banished from RiverClan by Splashtail. It was nice to see Shadowsight comfort her, relating to her experience with everything he went through in the Broken Code. Tigerstar then called a meeting about Berryheart trying to depose him, and wanted ShadowClan to be able to air their grievances with him. Frostpaw bravely called him out on his takeover of RiverClan when he was met with silence. I was glad to get this conversation, and that Tigerstar even agreed that maybe he took it too far, even though he had good intentions. Tigerstar took her aside after and scolded her for speaking out, but Frostpaw held her ground. Tigerstar seemed more impressed by that than angry, thankfully. Frostpaw tells him that she wants to go to sneak to RiverClan to see what's going on there, and if Splashtail has officially become Splashstar. I was surprised, but I suppose she thinks it's worth the risk. She hides and watches Splashtail leading some intense battle preparation to take revenge against ShadowClan. Uh-oh. At least Splashtail is still Splashtail, and is definitely avoiding going to the moon pool for as long as possible. Frostpaw then gets caught, but by an ideal cat, Mothwing. Mothwing tells Frostpaw that she believes her, and had been carefully sowing doubt about Splashtail here and there, and says that Mistpaw, Greypaw, Icewing, and Duskfur may share in those doubts, but everyone is too relieved to have a leader to look much into it. Mothwing largely dismisses Frostpaw's concerns that Splashtail may be trying to delay going to the moon pool indefinitely, waiting for the clan to fully accept him so it no longer matters, and no one will know StarClan doesn't accept him. It's partially out of fear for speaking out against Splashtail and leaving RiverClan without a real medicine cat. Many could die in whatever battle is coming if she did, so I understand that much at least. Chapter 5 is with Nightheart. He, Sunbeam, and Finchlight are out hunting, while Wasp and Waffle watch and learn. Nightheart then takes them to the Elders to listen to stories, to try to get them excited about ThunderClan, like they are about RiverClan, in case things with Splashtail end badly. They tell them about the Dark Forest, and a line here bothered me a bit. It goes, "When a cat has been really evil, not just making a mistake or maybe breaking the warrior code, but deliberately choosing to set their paws on the path of wickedness, they go to the Dark Forest instead." I'm pretty sure there are cats in the Dark Forest who do not fit that description. And not to mention cats like Leafpool, who was put on trial to enter StarClan, and is very clearly not an evil cat. Or cats like Ashfur, who I'd say were definitely misplaced after death. It's not as black and white as what's written here. StarClan, and the authors really, seem to have some biases towards and against certain cats. It was nice hearing the other stories from the Elders though, albeit a little repetitive as I feel like we've been getting a fair bit of this recently. And they're stories I already know well from reading the early arcs so many times as a kid. I appreciated Nightheart actually wanting to hear about Firestar now that he's feeling a bit more secure in himself. That actually did get me excited to see these tales through his eyes. Later, Sunbeam tells Nightheart she wants to go check in on her exiled family, which I'm sure will go poorly. Chapter 6 is with Sunbeam. She asks Squirrelflight for permission, to which Squirrelflight technically says no, but we're meant to understand she's saying yes, but can't say that in case Sunbeam is caught on WingClan territory. Nightheart revoked his support of Sunbeam going a bit, and isn't able to go with her, so Sunbeam sets off alone. She finds her family, and Berryheart is badly injured and dealing with an infection. She helps where she can, but there's not much she can do before she has to leave. I was glad she ran into Smokey and gives him the news of Frostpaw's safe return. I hope Sunbeam's family ends up going to him for help, but Berryheart's stubbornness will likely get in the way. Chapter 7 is back with Frostpaw as she convinces the ShadowClan medicine cats to let her come to the Half Moon meeting. Her and Podlight, who I forgot was her uncle, wow, her family sucks, get in a fight over who is the real medicine cat of RiverClan, and the tides thankfully seem to be going in her favor, as the others learn Splashtail has yet to get his 9 lives. I wonder what he'll do now. Though things definitely end up a bit more split after Podlight isn't obviously rejected by StarClan in any way, and most of the cats don't seem convinced by the vision Frostpaw had, a darkness falling over a drying up river. Chapter 8 is a Nightheart POV. He subtly keeps watch for Alderheart and Jayfeather as Sunbeam raids the medicine cat den for herbs for Berryheart. After stalling the two when they show up, he overhears them talking to Squirrelflight, throwing their support to Frostpaw, and wanting something to be done about Splashtail. I am very glad to hear it. She could certainly use more supporters. It's enough to cause Squirrelflight to want to go talk to Frostpaw herself, inviting a worried Nightheart along. He feels bad that he's unable to be there for Sunbeam again, as he leaves with Squirrelstar. Good! He should feel bad about it. Arriving in ShadowClan, Tigerstar is glad to have another leader actually taking Frostpaw seriously, and he warns them that RiverClan are preparing for battle. Frostpaw shares her dark vision and what she's learned from spying with the ThunderClan cats. They all seem to be on the same page, which is great to see. Maybe this will convince Squirrelflight to act instead of waiting until it's too late. Chapter 9 is back with Sunbeam, trying to look for help to get the herbs to Berryheart. Frustrated that Nightheart wasn't there to give her support. Again. Do I sense a conflict between the two? It's probably too much to hope for, as she still seems pretty understanding. She approaches Bayshine instead. Sunbeam asks for help and admits to her thievery. Bayshine is immediately on board and is super nice about it. It's honestly so lovely to see how kind the ThunderClan cats have been to Sunbeam. After all her troubles with her family and friends in ShadowClan, it's a breath of fresh air. Once out of camp, he got to hunting while she headed towards her mother. I desperately hope we get more of these two's friendship. That was so sweet. Things go poorly from there. Berryheart is getting worse, and on the way home, Sunbeam is caught by a WindClan patrol and is forced to stay the night by Hairstar. A little harsh in my opinion, especially since he knows the reason for her trespass. Chapter 10, Frostpaw. It's a clear night, and Splashtail is meant to head to the moon pool, finally. Frostpaw convinces Puddleshine to go to the moon pool with her to see if Splashtail actually shows up. I'm glad to see some cats taking action and trying to get to the bottom of things. And it works beautifully. Frostpaw and Puddleshine hide as Splashtail and Podlight show up. And the two RiverClan cats could not be less careful about their conversation. Speaking about being glad for new kits being born soon, keeping Mothwing in camp, waiting around long enough for everyone to believe the 9 Lives ceremony happened, and Splashtail even talks about killing Reed Whisker. I was honestly shocked about how openly they spoke out in the woods, even though they thought they were alone. Puddleshine was there to witness all of it. If anything happens to him on the way to ShadowClan, I will actually scream. Do not dangle this in front of me. Splashtail and Podlight also talk horribly about Frostpaw. Cats who were meant to be her friend and kin, and clanmates at the very least. I expect it from Splashtail, but it was painful to see Podlight laugh along at her expense. Apparently all of that wasn't proof enough though, as Riverstar appeared to Frostpaw and Puddleshine, looking warmly at her. Which was the final nail in the coffin for any doubts that Puddleshine may have had. Thankfully they make it safely to ShadowClan and go straight to Tigerstar. Unfortunately, we have to wait to see what happens as we switch to a Nightheart POV. It sounds like Waffle is fitting in enthusiastically in ThunderClan, while Wasp a little less so. Nightheart is also worried that Sunbeam hasn't returned. Bayshine covered for her well, good job bestie, but Nightheart knew the truth and told his worries to Waffle as WindClan approached with Sunbeam. While Nightheart was relieved she was unhurt, he was also embarrassed by her. She just doesn't want her mother to die. Give her a break. Maybe if you had been there to help, this wouldn't have happened, Nightheart. Bringing the goop to Squirrel Star, everyone was as kind as they could be about the situation while not being able to admit it. Understanding that Sunbeam was going through a difficult time. I appreciate that, though I kind of wish they'd all just drop the facade and say what they actually mean. Sunbeam and Bayshine were about to get scolded when we got more visitors, as Tiger Star burst into the camp. He hopes that Squirrel Star will listen to what he has to say, as it sounds like he's already visited Leaf Star, who did not. How? With all that proof? What happened to my wise and reasonable SkyClan leader? Squirrelflate gathers her medicine cats and Nightheart for some reason, probably just so we can hear it too, which also means he can't go speak to or comfort Sunbeam. Yikes. Anyways, the news. Squirrel Star believes him, but still thinks this is just a RiverClan matter. Oh my god. I feel like Tiger Star's trying to help RiverClan with his takeover previously is having huge consequences now from it going so poorly. After much discussion and most of the cats being on Tiger Star's side, Squirrel Star agrees to act if WindClan can be persuaded. So this all rests on Hair Star. Great. And too bad Crowfeather just left moments before this. I do appreciate that the plan is to expose Splashtail and let RiverClan decide. It's a good in-between of doing nothing, like Squirrel Star, and doing way too much, like Tiger Star. And if it does come to a fight, that it'll be 3 clans against 2 at worst, if SkyClan takes RiverClan's side. In any other case, this would be my dream combo. At the end of the day, RiverClan still deserves their independence and autonomy. But they're working with bad info, which definitely needs to be fixed. Right at the end of the chapter, Alderheart brings up a concern. What happens if RiverClan believes Frostpaw, but decide to keep Splashtail anyways? Are they desperate enough for the stability of a leader that they'll follow a murderer? I don't even know anymore. We return to Sunbeam's perspective, presumably for her scolding. A little less interesting than everything else going on, to be honest. Squirrel Star is furious, but sympathetic too. She demotes Sunbeam to apprentice duties for a few days. I really wish she had just asked Squirrel Star to bring Berryheart for medical help. It's going to be harder for her to sneak away now, and she should confide in her leader instead of said sneaking. Sunbeam sent Nightheart in her stead, who I actually thought was going to refuse to help at first, with how he was talking. And it sounds like Hairstar is going to be waiting until the gathering to choose where to pledge his support. Annoying, but not unexpected. Nightheart returns with bad news for his mate. He couldn't find her family waiting for help. So they either turned away when they saw it was him, or Berryheart is already dead. Frostpaw is our gathering POV. Before we get into it, we've got Hairstar refusing to take a side yet, Leafstar defending Riverstar's right to pick its own leader, and Squirrelstar willing to back Tiger Star up if he convinces WindClan. Of all of these cats, I never ever thought it would be Tiger Star I supported the most. Leafstar's reasoning is infuriating. Sure, those words are fine without context, but the fact that RiverClan is operating under the assumption that Splashtail is telling the truth makes it impossible for them to make an educated choice here. Yes, they should decide for themselves, but not if they are unaware of all the horrific things Splashtail has done to get there. And with that logic, Leafstar should be on the side of exposing the truth, so RiverClan can actually make informed decisions here. Not to mention that StarClan themselves are against Splashtail being leader. How often does that actually happen? Surely that attests to how awful he is. As Splashtail enters the gathering and immediately continues spreading his lies, Frostpaw, Tiger Star, and Puddleshine speak out against him. Things erupt into chaos, and Splashtail discredits them all for being liars, exiles, and invaders. Leafstar officially throws her lot in with him, pledging her support and belief in him. It was very painful to hear from a cat I consider to be a favorite of mine. It just feels out of character at this point. Like it's only happening to even things out and have someone siding with RiverClan. Just why did it have to be her? Hairstar could have easily filled that role, if he weren't so damn indecisive. Splashtail just continued with the gathering after that, sharing news of his deputy, Hairlight, and a new litter of kits: Float Kit, Rapid Kit, and Trout Kit. I was surprised at his choice in Hairlight, Frostpaw's mentor, who still seems to care for her. Also, we could end up with 2 hair stars if things get even crazier. And even more surprised that was enough to keep most cats on Splashtail's side. Really? After all that? He's a manipulator, sure, but come on. I'd at least expect a more even split, if not more support on Frostpaw's side, after what she and Puddleshine saw. With Hairstar's announcement of his choice to support Splashtail, that was it. At least until Splashtail inevitably ends up doing something to bring harm upon the other clans. I hope they all feel dumb about their choices when it happens. In other news, new kits have been born in Wind Clan 2 with Leaf Kit, Branch Kit, and Grass Kit. Also, time is up for Wasp and Waffle to choose if they will join ThunderClan officially. Kinda forgot that was now. I wasn't surprised by their choices. Wasp opting to return home after being disappointed by the state of RiverClan. Fair. And Waffle, now Wafflepaw, wanting to stay with ThunderClan. I was very pleased about that. But also ThunderClan is the last clan to be needing more cats right now. As Frostpaw left the gathering, she scented a RiverClan cat stalking her, and I feared for her life, recalling Splashtail's previous attack on her. But it was dusk for an Icewing, telling Frostpaw they believe her. Yes, finally! And they're working on bringing more cats to their side. Mistpaw and Greypaw are with them too, but Duskfur is leaving them out of it until necessary, to protect them. Frostpaw was glad, but also a bit hurt that she hadn't been extended the same kindness when she needed protecting, and I'm right there with her. A silver lining to this horrible gathering, though. I thought the chapter would end right there, but we got a dream too. Frostpaw seeing Reed Whisker, telling her it's not over, showing her a river being split in 2 by a bolt of lightning, one side calm and one side churning, then a storm crashing over the moor, spelling obvious trouble for Wind Clan. By RiverClan? Why would they go after a clan who just pledged their support to them? I'm very curious to see what that's all about. Next up is Nightheart, with a very exciting ceremony. Waffle, Bristlekit, Greykit, and Stemkit are being made apprentices. Nightheart was chosen to mentor Wafflepaw, which makes a lot of sense as he's already basically training him. Some cats grumble about being older and not having received apprentices yet, and that Nightheart only got chosen for being related to Firestar, which is a really good way to make sure you don't get to mentor any of the kits about to be apprenticed. Bayshine got Bristlepaw, Finchlight got Greypaw, and Molewhisker got Stempaw. The mentors take their apprentices out for a tour of the territory, and afterwards, Nightheart finally has time to talk to an anxious Sunbeam, promising to help her with her kin. I will be holding him to that. Sunbeam has a very short chapter next, about a terrible storm that hits on her first patrol out since her punishment ended. She runs into Frostpaw, who is frantically trying to get to Wind Clan, presumably to warn them about her dream, that now seems to be coming true in the form of an actual storm. We switch POVs to Frostpaw to find out just that, which also ended up being a very short chapter. Lots of jumping around right now. But she warns Wind Clan about her vision, guessing that a tree or something would fall on the nursery during the storm. They don't really believe her, because of her track record, and the fact that there are no trees near it. But the potential threat to their kits is enough to post guards on the nursery, just in case. Maybe if it all comes true, this will convince Hairstar to Frostpaw's side. Frostpaw realizes she'll never make it back to ShadowClan in this weather, so she heads for the next closest camp, ThunderClan. We're back with Nightheart to see ThunderClan finish preparing against the storm. Frostpaw makes it there and convinces ThunderClan to send help to Wind Clan. Nightheart and Sunbeam volunteer to go with her. Sunbeam is our POV character for the mission. I think this is the first time our protagonists have been grouped together, that I remember at least. I'm honestly very excited. Which quickly turned to horrified as our group approached Wind Clan. Sunbeam spots a single tree above the camp, lit up in flashes of lightning, and she could see that Frostpaw was right. No trees, huh, Wind Clan? One tree, it's still a tree. A bolt of lightning hit the tree, shattering it in two. Half sent careening towards the camp, and the nursery. Our cats reached their destination just as the tree crashed down, exactly where Frostpaw had said, the camp erupting into panic around them. Thankfully, Kestrelflight tells them that as the storm got worse, he started taking Frostpaw's warning more seriously and begun evacuating the kits. Keyword, begun. One kit was still in there, Leaf Kit. Sunbeam looked at the devastation that was once the WindClan nursery and couldn't imagine a newborn kit could have survived that. My heart only sank further as Kestrelflight says that they could hear Leaf Kit's mewing at first, but now she had fallen silent. Whistlepaw had been trying to dig her way through the branches to Leaf Kit, hurting herself in her desperation to save the kit, who we learn is her sister, when Frostpaw tries to stop her. Whistlepaw relents when Frostpaw says that they need to come up with a plan to get this done. The WindClan and ThunderClan cats work together to pry open a cat-sized gap to get Sunbeam in to what was left of the nursery. Relief flooded over the both of us as she finds Leaf Kit. Terrified, but still alive, she gets herself and the kit out, and to the medicine cat den. The kit is thankfully largely unharmed. Whistlepaw was not so lucky, suffering terrible wounds and laying unconscious next to a worried Frostpaw. If anyone ever doubts these two and their loyalties ever again, I will come for their heads. The next chapter features Frostpaw, applying herbs to a now awake Whistlepaw. These two's friendship means everything to me, and if this were any other series, I would have actual hope of them ending up something more based on scenes like this. Frostpaw admires Whistlepaw's bravery, but tells her that she has to think about her own safety too. She apologizes for all the trouble that Whistlepaw got into for helping Frostpaw and staging her death. Whistlepaw tells her that it was nothing, to which Frostpaw tells her it was everything. Whistlepaw believed in her before anyone else, and saved her when no one else could. I was glad that Kestrelflight walked in on the two to apologize for not seeing the whole story, and that Whistlepaw's punishment was over. Hairstar wanted to speak to Frostpaw too. He apologized for not believing Frostpaw, finally seeing sense. He agreed that if RiverClan sees similar sense and starts to change from inside, WindClan will be there to help, which is the best we can hope for now. This chapter, and the last, have been the highlight of the book for me. Lots of danger and excitement, and some very satisfying apologies and resolutions. Chapter 20 is back with Nightheart. He and Sunbeam report to Squirrelflight, and she is delighted to learn that WindClan will stand with them. So now we wait. It's up to RiverClan to get this started and get Splashtail out of here. Nightheart watches the apprentices and notices that Wasp was absent. He asks Wafflepaw, and he looks very guilty as he tells him that Wasp had gone to RiverClan. What? It sounds like this went down when Nightheart was away at WindClan. He tears himself up for not being there for his apprentice, and feels bad again for all the times he's not been there for Sunbeam too. Bit of a theme with him. He's definitely not over all his insecurities, but even I think he should give himself a break over at least some of those. Squirrelflight is informed about Wasp, and she refuses to risk sending anyone after him. If RiverClan didn't throw him out for being a spy, he was probably dead. I understand it's risky, but surely they could have done something. If Wasp is injured or dead, Wafflepaw will never forgive himself for not telling anyone about it sooner. Too many cats these last few books have been a bit, what will be, for my liking. Someone take some action. Our action cat very much seems to be Frostpaw, which I will forever be grateful for, as she volunteers to spy on RiverClan to see how Duskfur and co are getting on. Nightheart and Sunbeam decide to go with, when Tigerstar visits to speak about WindClan turning. We switch back to Nightheart just in time for a couple RiverClan cats to shove their way into camp with a roughed up Wasp. They warned ThunderClan about spying before being cast out. Wasp got to make his farewells as he leaves to return to the park. I'm glad he's alive, and I think he's making the right choice. Though I am sad he can't stick around for one more book, for when RiverClan will probably be back to normal. But after their treatment of him, I probably wouldn't want to join anymore either. I was properly surprised when Squirrelstar still have our protagonists go ahead with the spying after that. But like, hell yeah, let's do it. Frostpaw leads the other two to the camp, and we see Splashtail leading some intense battle training instead of cleaning up the rubble from the storm, yelling about going after the traitors, which is when our group noticed that Mothwing, Duskfur, and Icewing, all the cats on Frostpaw's side, were all missing. The RiverClan cats were looking deeply worried, but seemed too afraid to challenge Splashtail, which was good and bad to see. I'm glad they're slowly turning on him, not so great that they're too afraid to do anything about it yet. Splashtail continued on, not calling for punishment for the traitors, but for their deaths. Very extreme. It's unclear exactly what these cats even did, snuck out in the night. His words were met with silence, except for the calls of support from one she-cat, a cat that Nightheart could not believe he was seeing. It's 100% Berryheart, isn't it? Next we read from Sunbeam's perspective and get confirmation. Berryheart. I guess it was only a matter of time before she was back to working with Splashtail. Seems like the only one crazy enough to. Sunbeam's father and brother were there too, but they did not look happy about it. They probably felt like they had no choice after no one else came to help them. Our group sneaks away to talk about what they've seen. Sunbeam blames herself for her family ending up there. And, well, I don't blame her. Squirrel Star could have prevented this if she had allowed Sunbeam to give medical help to her mother. Frostpaw gets the group to more pressing matters and says they have to find the so-called traitors before Splashtail does. Our cats were still close enough to hear something that I've been dreading since reading the blurb of the next book, Star. A new voice rose above the rest in RiverClan, saying, "Splash Star, listen." The voice, who I can only assume belongs to Hairlight, struck fear into Frostpaw, saying that they had to hear this. Frostpaw is our final POV character. She gets closer to the camp to witness the scene before her. Hairlight tells Splashtail that perhaps they are being too hasty and too harsh. Duskfur, Icewing, and Mothwing have all been loyal RiverClan cats for many years, since before Splashtail was even born. He suggests that they speak to the traitors first and see what they have to say for themselves. Frostpaw recognizes the fake agreement in Splashtail's voice as he assures Hairlight that he hasn't crossed a line with this challenge. Before interrupting any response from Hairlight, going on about how RiverClan had grown soft and lazy under Misty Star's rule, growing used to peace that no longer existed for them. Without another word, Splashtail flung himself at Hairlight, slashing his claws across his throat. And Frostpaw had to witness yet another loved one die in front of her, unable to do anything to stop it. Splashtail told the gathered cats that this was the new RiverClan, greater, stronger, more powerful, all while standing in Hairlight's pooling blood. And based on looks of fear and disgust he seemed not to notice, no one wanted this new RiverClan but him. As Hairlight had been deputy, Splashtail had to choose someone new, which ended up being Berryheart, of course, his sole supporter. They'll make for a terrifying duo. Though with just the two of them, surely they can be stopped with the might of 3+ clans working against them. Will they have outside help? Will SkyClan still stand with them after this? To Sunbeam's dismay, it was clear that Berryheart hadn't been surprised to hear she was appointed deputy. Splashtail and her had clearly discussed it beforehand. Had he just been waiting for the opportunity to murder Hairlight? Horrible. Frostpaw felt renewed urgency to find the RiverClan runaways immediately. The only shots at the old RiverClan surviving. We end the book with Frostpaw seeing that destiny wouldn't be enough to save RiverClan. She'd have to fight for it. She could only hope that she was strong enough to see it through. Thanks for watching. Wow, what a conclusion! I'll admit I was feeling my usual warrior's frustrations for the first half of the book, but around chapter 14 and onwards I was hooked. A lot of compelling stuff in there, and a pretty good setup for the grand finale. I loved getting a little bit of all our main characters together, though I would have liked to see even more dialogue between them. I loved getting more Frostpaw and Whistlepaw, and to get Cats finally on Frostpaw's side, seeing Splashtail for who he really is. Speaking of, he's been a fun and incredibly irritating villain so far. Manipulation is definitely his strong suit, and that seems to be falling apart now, with his descent into an insatiable hunger for power and control, which I'm sure will lead to his downfall. I cannot wait to see where it'll all go in Star. I very much want Frostpaw to receive her warrior or medicine cat name or whatever after 5 books as an apprentice. If she survives it all, that is. She'll certainly deserve it. She already does. Then I can do my redraw of our protagonists. And I really want to see what Splashtail is going to do now that WindClan, ThunderClan, and ShadowClan, and RiverClan have lost faith in him. I don't want to underestimate him, but how much damage can he do without the numbers? And Leafstar, better shape up. I am furious with her. Anyways, if you've given this book a read, let me know what you thought. I feel like this arc had a strong start, but was losing me in the middle, but I'm pretty back on board. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next Thursday.